That's what Dad liked about him. He wasn't real. He was more just kind of.
Dad would have wanted it just like this. I think so.
Yeah. Welcome to the celebration of Stan Wentland's life, and life well lived. And you know what? I think he truly has been smiling down this whole time. He's enjoying your conversations and your rowdiness and the loudness. And some of you might have missed the song that was just played, that he did it his way. And again, it's a great honor to be at this podium today to celebrate the life of Stanley Wentland. After the celebration of this life, you're invited to go to the Harlem Community Center there on Forest Hills and share a meal together. There's not a more appropriate place to continue the celebration of Stan's life than at this place that was so special to him, HCC. And I know we're busy people, and that's why this family appreciates you being here today. And if you have the time to come by and share more Stan stories and eat some food, they would truly be grateful for that. I'm going to be reading from the book of Ecclesiastes today. It's a great little passage of scripture. It's so relevant. Where a guy named Solomon said these words: There's a time for everything and a season for every activity under the heavens. There's a time to plant, there's a time to harvest. There's a time to tear down, and there's a time to build. A time to cry and a time to laugh. A time to mourn and a time to dance. A time to hold on and a time to let go. A time to be born and a time to die. And that time has come for Stan Wentland. The poet said it so well, and I can't think of another poem that's so fitting for Stan's life, when this author penned these words: to laugh often and much, to win the respect of intelligent people and the affection of children, to earn the approval of honest critics and to endure the betrayal of false friends, to appreciate beauty, to find the best in others, to give oneself, to leave the world a bit better, whether by a healthy child, a garden patch, or redeemed social condition, to have played and laughed with enthusiasm, to know that one life has breathed easier because of you, that is success. Let me reword that. Stan laughed often and much. Stan won the respect of intelligent people and the affection of children. Stan appreciated beauty, found the best in others, and gave. Stan left this world a better place. Stan played and laughed with enthusiasm. Stan made life better for other people. Stan Wentland was a success. Would you pray with me? God, I thank you for moments like this where we can come and gather and remember and celebrate the life of a special person. Thank you for the people you put in our lives, including husbands, dads, grandpas, great-grandpas, brothers, brother-in-laws, father-in-laws, neighbors, friends. And thank you for the life of Stanley Wentland that we've come to honor and celebrate today, Father. It's our prayer that both you and Stan would smile down upon these next few moments. And I pray this prayer in your son's name. Amen.
Yeah.
first met Stan in the fall of 1985 when I was asked to be the youth pastor at Harlem Road Christian Church on Harlem and Scott Lane, and he owned the shopping center across the road. We'd have conversations from time to time, and we'd bump into each other out in the community. And it seemed like each time we met, we furthered our friendship. And that's why it's a great honor to be asked to be a part of today's celebration of his life. And I feel like I knew Stan pretty well, but I got to know him even better when I was at the house the other day and heard more Stan stories from kids and family members. And there's some other people that know him pretty well also, and that's his children. And I'm going to ask Tom to come first, and then Mike, after we have another pretty special song that remembers Stan's living years.
name's Tom. I'm number 3 in the pecking order. I don't know if you know our family, but with so many names, you know, my mom and dad gave us numbers. So it's just easier to remember a number than a name because they would go to, you know, Pete, Charlie, Sue. They would get confused as to what to call us. So I'm number 3 of 8. So I first want to thank everybody for coming. Special thanks to my 3 first cousins that came from Boston, Ruthie, Georgia, Julie, Dee Dee from Ohio. I wanted to thank all the grandkids for coming out of town. My sister Sue from South Carolina. A lot of the people, you know, that my dad doing business. Ike, I think, is here today. All the kids I see that he used to coach, you know, through the baseball leagues and stuff. So again, just to get that out of the way, thanks for everybody for coming. I wanted to say a few words today about it, but as soon as I started to try to put things down into words, it was very difficult. And I don't know if anybody's ever had to do this, but every single time I wanted to write something about my mom or my dad, I wanted to write something about my mom. Because if you knew them, you know, they were a team. They did everything together. They had, you know, us 8 kids, 24 grandkids, if I get the numbers wrong, let me know. 24 grandkids, 19 great-grandchildren. But, you know, they came to every event, every practice of all the children, of all the grandkids. I think that everybody will hear it testify that. But Tim and Matt are here, they even come to your guys' games. And Mr. Witzig, if he's still here, he would still come to those football games, even if, you know, one of my or dad's grandkids weren't there. So, you know, he supported a lot of people, helped a lot of people that we didn't even know, right? Had no idea of. So, I consider them a team. It's hard if I keep referring to my mom a little bit, it's just because, you know, they raised us. It wasn't just my dad. My dad might have taught me to play, you know, baseball, wrestling, football, and a bunch of other stuff. And he was my coach through baseball and football. But my mom, she taught me how to skate. She taught me how to do crossword puzzle. She taught me how to play Scrabble. She didn't like to sew, so she taught me to help sew clothes, you know, that had gotten torn or whatever. For whatever reason, I kind of liked it. And heaven only knows how that ended up later helping me, because when I eventually, it's a long story, but I ended up in med school, and when I got there, they're like, hey, we've never seen anybody that can suture like you. What? Where did you learn? And I said, my mom taught me. I had to sew clothes when I was a kid. So it's those kinds of crazy stories that go on that, you know, I think that they supported us in everything. They encouraged us in everything. They pushed us to do everything they could. They wanted the best for us. Okay. Now, for me, you know, wanting the best or trying to help me was kind of a duality there. I'll give you an example, another story. So, you know, if I got a toy for Christmas, whatever, you know how kids are, they just race, rip it open, and try to put it together, right? That's just how it goes. So, of course, you sit there and work on it, and it just doesn't work, something's not right. So I run to Dad, Dad, can you help me? Help me put it together. And he'd say no. And this is, I can still say this today. He said, if all else fails, read the directions. And if I had to come back later, he'd just repeat the same words. So, you know, I might not have liked it at the time, but I think he was trying to teach me to teach myself. The answer's there, but, you know, you gotta find it. So that's kind of how he was. Let's see. One of the biggest reasons I admired my dad was that the love he had for my mom. And that he showed her, you know, as best he could. Now again, I've got to give you a story. And Okay, so you know, if you know my mom, she was in the hospital a lot, having babies. Okay, so as I got older, you know, I didn't go, we only took him and, you know, she'll be back in a couple of days, that kind of thing. Well, in the meantime, of course, my dad would cook for us. And I was like, man, this is really good stuff. Dad, you really know how to cook. And he said, you ever say that again, I'm gonna beat your ass. So help me God, if you ever say that to your mother and hurt her feelings, I'll kill you. So the secret was that he knew how to cook, but he wouldn't let anyone know, and he sure didn't want to hurt my mom's feelings by coming home, you know, saying, hey, when you were gone, Dad really cooked some good food, that kind of thing. So, just again, one of those things. You know, in his later years, the family knows this, but, you know, she was sick, and so he took care of her, which was a side I think we didn't see too much as siblings. You know, we saw him help other people. Again, Matt, I'll pick you out, Tim, a bunch of other people, the Palmers. But to see him help my mom take care of her, cook for her, you know what I mean? Because she was, you know, sick before she died. So it was, and he liked it. He took on the role of the caregiver, which again, if you knew my dad, that was a very big surprise. We never thought he had it in him, but he did. So he would cook, he would do stuff for her. You know, she would get to do her crossword puzzles, watching the Cubs games. Okay? So it was just a nice thing to see in those later years. Okay. And I'll give you two last stories. I'm trying to make this quick. And I don't know if Bobby was going to mention it or not, but again, most of the people here know my dad through baseball and the coaching and stuff like that. And he was really into that. And again, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it was when my oldest sister Joan was married. You know, one of the first times we ever saw him in a tuxedo, let alone a tie on. Okay? And there's a story with Dad that he wouldn't wear the pink shirt, he had to wear white. There was no way he was wearing pink. But, so there's a baseball game going on at the same time that he was coaching. And I don't know if it was Tim was playing or not, but anyways, it was at the boys' club. So he gets most of the boys together and says, hey, look, I gotta sneak out of here and go coach. Okay? So he leaves his daughter's reception, wedding reception. Would tell me, like, if my mom came looking for him, I'm supposed to say, oh, he's over talking to Mike. Then Mike would say, oh, you know, yeah, he was just here, but he went over to talk to Joe. Okay? So the dodge was to keep that going so he could run off. And then you should have seen the people at the ball game going, what's this guy doing with a tuxedo on third base? but it was so important to him, you know, he wanted to help and thought he could help. Again, it's funny, in a way. It wasn't my wedding, but he did make it back, and I'm not sure if my mom, I think she found out later, but, you know, the ruse worked, that kind of thing. So, you just gotta know who my dad was. My dad, you know, had principles, convictions, fulfilled his commitments, was a man of integrity. In the Army, I don't know if you know, he was in the Korean War. He was first in the Marines, right? But he snuck in when he was 15. They found out, they kicked him out. And he joined the Army. So he's in the Army during the Korean conflict. They sent him up to Detroit, stationed there. So, and again, my dad, remember, he's a man of integrity. When he says you can promise him something, he expects it, because that's how he was. If he promised something, he would make sure that his commitment was followed. So they have this shooting contest, marksman, whatever, and they promise the winner a 3-day pass. Grandpa wins. He goes to pick up his thing, they say, oh, we changed our mind, we're not gonna give it to you. Okay, now how do you think that set with my dad? He didn't like that one iota. Now luckily, he happened to work in the motor pool. So he goes back to the motor pool and steals a truck. Okay? drives it right out the gate, and goes home, because Detroit, you know, it's drivable, come back to Rockford. He wants to come back see his family. You promised I could have a 3-day pass. Okay? Now, was it wrong to do that? Yes. And he was willing to take full responsibility for doing it. But here's the catch. He goes home, sees his family. I think Joan was born then. And I can't get the years straight or not, whether you were born yet or I was. Okay? But it's going to be one of us here. Okay? So he goes back, and lo and behold, his entire company is gone. The reason they didn't allow him to have a pass is they shipped the whole company off to Korea. So they're like, what do we do with this idiot? First, of course, they bust him down in rank and then put him back in the motor pool. 9 months later, either marry or me or born. Okay? And he got to stay, so then he got to come home, and so the rest of us were born. So what I'm saying is, if it wasn't for his conviction, I have no idea what would have happened. But that's the kind of guy he was. All right? And if you're here today, you know, I believe he touched your life just like he touched our lives. And that you'll miss him just as much as we miss him. And that I'm proud to say that he was my father. That's all I have.
Good job, Thomas.
Thank you, Tom.
Hello, I'm number 8. Now, they've always told me that if I would have been born first, I would have been an only child.
How much did you weigh? 10.5 pounds.
I was 10 pounds 8 ounces when I was born. I guess I was a large. I prefer to think of it as they couldn't get any better than me. So after me, they stopped because hey, you can't mess with perfection. But, now this I saw from a friend on Facebook, and I'm totally going to steal it. Don't be sad that he's gone. Be glad that he was here. Biggest thing I can remember, I found out later, of course, Christmas Eve, we were poor, very poor, and I guess Christmas Eve they would go out that night and do all the shopping, buy the presents because of sales. They were half off or whatever. They'd come home and wrap them all and put them under the tree, and the kids would all get up and crack of dawn, and we would oh wow, presents. But that was what they did. They were they sacrificed for the kids. Now, his favorite thing to do was always hog pile. He had a belly. I mean, he didn't drink beer, but he had a belly. But he'd love to just come and randomly, you're in the living room laying on the floor, he'll come and sit on you.
And yell hog pile.
And yell hog pile, yeah. That's hog pile, and then everybody would pile on top. But yeah, he'd be first. I'm telling a few stories too. I can remember we were at dinner and we had spaghetti, and for us that was a big treat because we rarely had it. But we were eating spaghetti, and one of my siblings, I'm looking at you, John, said, "Hey, there's a bug in my spaghetti." And Dad didn't miss a beat. He's like, well, son, you know, there's only one thing worse than finding a bug in your spaghetti. That's finding half a bug in your spaghetti. The spaghetti went everywhere. That was yeah, he was always making levity and making jokes. Oh, another thing, Uncle Tom, I'm very sorry. This was another little thing he'd like to do. My Uncle Tom would come visit. He lived far away, and I was a young kid. My dad would say, hey, when your Uncle Tom comes over, punch him in the nose. So my Uncle Tom, you know, when he walked in the door, he'd bend over, oh, hi, Mike, and arms out, bam! They say I made him cry, but so I apologize, Tom. I don't think I ever said the words actually. I'm so sorry that I punched you in the nose.
Bloodied him.
Let me see what else we got. Got a couple of things. Oh, and it's funny because when he was, you know, he loved to hog pile and lay on you, but later in life, he didn't like to hug people. You know, it's a thing with him. I brought one girl home in my life, and I didn't tell her about this. And so when they met for the first time, she ran up, gave him a big hug, and I was standing behind her, and I could see his eyes just got huge and froze. You know? Just he didn't like getting close to people. Well, most of you know that I had a little accident, and when I was at college, I decided I was a diver, as pretty much all of us, most of us boys were. But I decided to compete in the per state games. It's like an Olympics for Illinois. And I was down there speaking with someone, everybody knew each other, and he said, oh, is your dad here? No, I didn't tell him, you know, I didn't want to tell him. I said, if he would have been, you know, what if he would have been here? I think they knew, because I said, oh, if he knew I was here, he would be sitting right over there. I turned, and there he was, sitting in the audience. Well, he was the only one, but yeah.
Pretty cool.
I think my brother-in-law dragged me out, so, you know, but yeah, he found out about it and just dropped everything and drove down. That's what he did when I got hurt in Texas. He just, that night, dropped everything and flew down, so that's what he did. What else we got? And well, you know, they were talking about, you know, coaching everybody and all the work he did with the kids and going to see kids that he didn't even know or relate to. But so they named, I'm sure, oh, you all know, they all named the park after him. Oh, HEC, you know, it's now Wentland Sports Park. But, and of course, we all know the reason why that park was named after him. The check cleared. You know, and as you come up here, all these things hit you, and you know, memories and all these different things, but there are so many more stories. But because we were so poor, we couldn't afford going to a child psychologist. So we just had to block them all out. We had no process. So.
This is getting good.
I guess I'll end here. One more thing. This again, I'm stealing from a line from a song. Dad, thank you for your stories of the road. I thank you for the freedom when it came my time to go. I thank you for the kindness and the times when you got tough. And Dad, I'm sure I never said I love you near enough.
Tom and Mike, well worded, appropriate songs. So I did a little homework about the year 1931. In 1931, Herbert Hoover was the President of the United States. In 1931, a gallon of gas cost 10 cents. In 1931, a loaf of bread cost 8 cents and a pound of hamburger meat cost 11 cents. In 1931, both Frankenstein and Dracula films were released. In 1931, Alka-Seltzer was introduced. In 1931, Babe Ruth became the first Major League Baseball player to hit over 600 career home runs. In 1931, the first electric shaver went on sale. In 1931, Dick Tracy comic strip debuted. In 1931, the 98-foot-high Christ the Redeemer statue opened up in Rio de Janeiro. In 1931, the Empire State Building opened up in New York City. In 1931, Notre Dame football coach Newt Rockne. Notre Dame was one of Stan's favorite. In 1931, Notre Dame football coach Newt Rockne is killed in a plane crash. In 1931, the Star Spangled Banner officially became the U.S. national anthem. And on Tuesday, October 27th, 1931, Stanley F. Wentland was born in Rockford, Illinois, the son of Stanley and Josephine Wentland. And that's where Stanley's story began, on that October day of 1931. He grew up with his brothers Tom and John, and you might have saw Mike look this way intentionally a few times. This is being recorded for Tom to be able to participate in the celebration of his brother's life. Tom mentioned growing up that his older brother taught him a lot of things, like how to make a good peanut butter and jelly sandwich, how to overcome your fear of the dark, and how to have a good old pillow fight. But the boys grew up in a family where their parents owned a neighborhood grocery store. And a lot of Stan's convictions, a lot of his morals, a lot of his beliefs in life came from, I believe, that upbringing in that grocery store. And that grocery store and his family made Life magazine in an article in 1949. And the Wentland family was featured in that article. I truly believe his upbringing in that neighborhood grocery store by his parents made him the person that he was today. As mentioned, he joined the Marines at a much younger age than you're supposed to. After being told he was too young, he went and joined the U.S. Army. And it's only appropriate that at the end of this service today that military honors will be given to Stan today. And we will have these doors open. We'll hear a 21-gun salute. You'll hear a song played on a bugle that only has 24 notes. But those 24 notes and the song taps will put a lump in your throat. And we'll see the presentation of this American flag in honor of his service to our country be presented to the family. On July 2nd, he married Dorothy Kisting. And both you boys said it so well, but you know they were a team. And when you think of Stan, you think of Dorothy. When you think of Dorothy, you think of Stan. They go together. It's how it is. They were a perfect team together. And for 63 years, they exemplified what a marriage should look like. And the example they set for their kids, their grandkids, their great-grandkids, and the friends around them. They had 8 children. They had numbers, but they also had names. And Joan and Mary and Tom and John and Joe and Teresa and Sue and Mike, you said it well, it's all about family. And family was so important to him. You got tremendous memories growing up on Randy Road, and that large tree house that he built in the backyard for you guys to play, and your house was the place to be on Randy Road. And you've got tremendous memories of your father as a strict, tough dad who believed in discipline. There were times when he would get up from his chair that you guys would scatter. He was authoritative, but he needed to be with 8 children. He was old school, and old school is still good today. He was supportive and encouraging, like we've heard. He was loving. And he provided. With 8 children, he had to go to work and he had to provide. And he was employed by Repco for 30 years. He had an old metal lunchbox that he carried to work every day. And in that metal lunchbox, with that metal thermos, he carried the same items every day. A tuna fish sandwich and a ding dong. For 30 years, that lunchbox carried those items. With 8 mouths to feed, he did have to do a lot of providing, but he had to make some rules. When it came to the peanut butter sandwiches, Joe and the boys learned to take your knuckles and press it down in that bread and to make it a deeper pocket so you could get more peanut butter in that sandwich. When Dad said you could only have 1 bowl of cereal, you would grab the mixing bowl from Mom's cabinet. But your dad provided. There was only 1 TV in the house. But more intriguing that there was only 1 bathroom. And you had to get in line and there was no buddy. There were times that Dad would say, well, let's take a family vote. But my vote counts for 10. On that first poster board, you have the words, the King of Dads. And he truly was a great king of his family. It was kind of said by Tom, but out of all the things your dad did for you 8 kids, the best thing he did is he loved your mom. And that's the best thing a dad could do for his kids. I commend you kids today in taking care of your father. It truly was a team effort. You're to be commended. And Joan, you get an extra high five, an extra pat on the back. Thank you for being the daughter during these days, and the support that you gave your father. You know, I'll come back to it, but you were the first child, the firstborn, the first to get married. When Jim first asked you to get married, your dad said no. You were too young.
Yeah.
But Jim, you hung in there.
Yep.
You're persistent.
Oh, yeah.
And the second time, Stan gave you permission.
Yep.
And what a gift that was. You 8 kids, you gave your mom and dad 24 grandchildren. I believe those grandchildren have given them 18 great-grandchildren. And you grandchildren have great memories on Glen Forest Road of Christmases and Easters and many holidays and many special times together. And I'm going to ask Rebecca if she would come and share some of those memories.
They also numbered the grandkids. I'm number 1. They also labeled the spouses. My husband's 1A. All of us grandkids have a lot of special memories about Grandpa. He still did the hog pile with us too. And we would love to go over to his house and rough house and hog pile. And every time we would go there, we would try to tickle him. I don't know about the other grandkids, but I never got Grandpa to laugh. he is not ticklish. And this is his reason, it's all in your mind. And that's what he would always tell us, and it was so annoying. But we would always try and sneak up from him on behind, no matter what we would try, tag team him, whatever. He never laughed. He was never ticklish. So he had a pretty strong mind. Another thing that my brother liked that he would do is that Grandpa would bark very loudly like a dog. And it kind of scared us, but it made us laugh. And we would ask him to do that. So I know. So I don't know if anybody else knew about that. Maybe that was just our family, but so it's pretty funny. But Grandpa was always there for all the grandchildren, and that's pretty amazing because he had 24 of them. But he was at every single game that we had. He was always helping us and coaching us and cheering us on, and he was always so proud of us. Even when he criticized us for maybe things that we didn't do right in the game, but he was so proud of us. I don't know about the rest of you, but he gave me letter grades for offense and defense. But I know that he was doing it because he loved me and he wanted me to get better, but he was so proud, and he was always there for all of us, for our sports, for our school, for when we needed cars, for when we needed help getting jobs, for when we needed references, for everything. He was just so proud of each and every grandchild, and he was so interested in what we were doing, even when we grew up and got married and had kids, and he was always interested in our lives. And Grandma too, they were just really special people. And then he had time to just help in the community beyond being busy with all of his children and his grandchildren and great-grandchildren. And he, as proud as he was of us and our accomplishments, I think he was so proud. He would always tell me about the community center and the playground and the daycare, and he was just so proud of helping the people in the community, and he always wanted to talk about that. And I just think that's really special because he had so much else that he could focus on, but he wanted to focus on the community and give back, and he touched a lot of lives that way. And I think that he inspired all of us to do the same. And I think that he's smiling down on us because we're honoring his legacy. We're honoring his legacy by being here and supporting each other. As a family, we're always here for each other. And I love to see on Facebook my cousins and my aunts and my uncles, and we're always supporting each other. And that just makes me really happy because family is the most important thing, and that's what he taught us, and we're passing that on to the next generation.
My grandfather was a quiet man, but his silence could speak volumes. The warmth of his gaze said, "I love you." The strength of his hug said, "I will keep you safe." The gentleness of his hand said, "You're precious to me." His nod of approval for a job well done said, "I respect you." Grandpa Stanley and my Grandma Dorothy never missed a sporting event, birthday party, or family gathering, no matter the distance. They were always such amazing supporters. The Wentland name will live on in all of us now, and I know that made our grandparents very proud. I'm honored to be their granddaughter, Megan. The Bible has a word to say to you grandchildren. The Bible says grandchildren are the crown to their grandparents. And I can tell you, and I'll remind you, that both your grandma and grandpa wore their crown with pride. And they were proud to be your grandparents. They were proud to brag. And it's not bragging when you can back it up. they wore their crown with a lot of pride. Stan, it's been mentioned several times. To many, he was Coach Wentland. He coached, and he coached, and he coached. Baseball, softball, basketball, football, wrestling. He would leave work to go coach a game, and then return back to work to finish his job. He coached football at St. Bridget's, basketball at Lutheran, Harlem softball he helped with, park baseball, mini baseball teams. And I'm going to take a guess that out of all the games that he coached, all the games he was assistant coach, he might just be the most winningest coach in this area. I had the privilege of coaching two of his grandsons, Harrison and AJ, in freshman football. And at times I felt like he was my assistant coach. But we did well. But just think about not only the lives that he touched coaching, but think about all the life lessons he taught to all those young people. It was brought out as a great story, kind of a funny story, how he did leave Joan and Jim's wedding reception to go coach a big baseball game. It was an important
playoff.
It was a playoff.
Joe Barkley.
It's against Joe's team. And like it was said, Joan, I'll dress up for your wedding, but I'm not wearing pink and I'm not wearing ruffles.
That's right.
No way.
And he was at your wedding, a brief appearance at your reception, and he gave you a TV for your wedding present. But he didn't get to see you open it because he was at third base in a tuxedo. I'll say it again, he might have been the most winningest coach in our area. And I can guarantee you he's the only coach at third base in a tuxedo.
Yes.
He was dedicated to our community. HCC, the Boys and Girls Club, he was on the boards, he was on the building and grounds. And he had a tremendous gift of vision and what the future could look like. The HCC Sports Complex was a dream of Stan's. And it started him being the driving force of Project Playworks. When he learned that a wooden playground was going to be torn down at Spectrum School. And he had this vision, why can't we take that playground and move it to what would one day be the Harlow Community Center? And he lined up a lot of friends and some companies to help in transporting it. He asked his son Joe to be the supervisor of reconstructing it. And I'm proud to say that I was part of that volunteer team that helped rebuild, and I worked side by side with Joe reconstructing that playground. And who would have ever guessed or thought that that vision would turn into a few ball diamonds, a few backstops, more baseball diamonds, a skate park. When he saw 3 of his grandkids involved in skateboarding, he started asking them questions. He wanted to learn more. This old school guy wanted to learn more about skateboarding. He would ask his grandson some questions. He saw Kevin, Carl, and Greg, and he asked, where are some more skate parks at? And he'd go visit these skate parks. And he came and he enlarged his vision, and now we have a skate park. And at that skate park, he was known as the old dude. And he loved it. A daycare. A daycare that helps a lot of young moms, a lot of young couples be able to afford daycare. He took his wife Dorothy out there. He said, Dorothy, I've got a diamond for you. And Dorothy's thinking, ring with a stone. And he took her out to that backstop and pointed to her name on that backstop and said, this is your diamond. And she was more proud of that than receiving a ring with a stone in it. As mentioned, that complex is now named after Stan Wentland. He planted a seed, and look how it grew. What a vision Stan had. Stan was a very successful entrepreneur. Remember that old lunchbox that he carried for 30 years with a ding dong and a tuna fish sandwich? That became his briefcase. That was his briefcase that he would carry paperwork and money into the bank. That old metal lunchbox became a business partner. And Stan Wentland flipped houses before flipping was popular. But can you imagine if we had the TV shows that we have on HGTV today, if we had them back then when Stan started flipping houses, and the star that he would be? He cheered for the Bears in Notre Dame. He was proud, he was honest, a man of integrity. He was fair, he had a sense of humor. He accepted others, and he lived by the golden rule. He treated others the way he would like to be treated. And to top all that off, he truly was a giving person. How many times, how many stories have we heard where somebody broke down, their car broke down out of town, and he would hook up a trailer and drive out of town for miles and pick that car up and that person up and bring them back to our community. He gave and he gave and he gave. And the children found some of the thank you cards that had been sent to their father. And this is just a small list of thank you cards from these people. The Patriots Gateway Center, Harlem Township Toys for Kids, St. Joseph Indian School, Rockford Park District, the Park Cruisers, Rockford Rescue Mission, the Wounded Warriors, GG Playhouse, St. Jude's, Shriners Hospital, Harlem Fans Club, Friends of the Skate Park, Northern Illinois Food Bank, Salvation Army, Toys for Tots, Harlem Community Center, Easter Seals, Smile Train, Special Olympics, Lions Club, Sisters of the Blessed Virgin Mary, Walter Lawson Children's Home, the Harlem Education Fund, Harlem Music Boosters, Harlem Roscoe Firefighters, Operation Enduring Freedom, Habitat for Humanity, NIU Softball, and the list goes on and on and on of how giving he was. I think this little poster says it so well. In 100 years from now, it will not matter what my bank account was, the sort of house I lived in, or the kind of car that I drove. But what will matter is that the world might be better and different because I was important in the life of a child. And Stan, I can say the world is better because you were truly interested, supported, encouraging, invested in our young people. And I say, thank you. Stanley F. Wentland, 89, of Mechesney Park, passed away peacefully Saturday, September 4th, 2021. Survivors include his children, Joan, her husband Jim, Mary, Tom, his husband Rose, John, wife Kim, Joe, Teresa, her husband Gordon, Sue, husband Jimmy, and Mike. 24 grandchildren, 18 great-grandchildren, brothers Thomas and John, who was also called Jack, numerous nieces and nephews, predeceased by his wife Dorothy and son-in-law Scott. I want to close with a story from a movie that came out maybe 10 or 12 years ago called The Bucket List. Very interesting movie. When you kind of think about that movie, it's pretty amazing how it kept our attention, because most of the time the movie is filmed in a hospital room. There's two main characters, Carter Chambers and Edwin Cole. They had nothing in common. One was an African-American gentleman who just did whatever he could to support his family. The other was a very wealthy white man who could do whatever he wanted. And they had nothing in common until they both were roommates in a hospital, diagnosed with cancer. And one day, Carter is scribbling some notes on a legal pad. He tries to wad it up and throw a piece of paper away, and he missed. Edwin Cole said, "Well, what was that?" He said, "Oh, it's nothing." He opened it up and it became a bucket list. A list of things that Carter wanted to accomplish in life and do. He didn't have the money. Edwin Cole and Carter Chambers hooked up and went on a wild, crazy adventure to accomplish that bucket list. They got in race cars, they went to crazy countries, they did a lot together. At the very end of that movie, on a snow-covered mountain, they're carrying the remains of Edwin Cole up that mountain. And you hear Carter Chambers' voice say he might have died with his eyes closed, but his heart was wide open. I truly believe on Saturday, September 4th, Stanley Wentland might have died with his eyes closed, but I believe his heart was still wide open. He was a very giving man. And I can only imagine what it must have been like to be reunited with your bride of 63 years. I can only imagine what transformation took place in Stanley Wentland's. I can only imagine what September 4th must have been like. God, thank you for the people you put in our life, and thank you for this man that we've come to celebrate today. The world is a much better place because of Stanley Wentland.